brother! Question for you, Ben. If wizards can teleport, ride brooms or thestrals, vanish into fireplaces, or travel by portkey, why do wizard students take a very muggle train to school? Today, we find out. How disappointing for all of the Muggle-borns, am I right? Like, ready to leave behind your petty, non-magical existence for a world of literal wizardry? Yes! Great, that'll be one 3-hour train ride. Also, all the toilets are the exact same. Bummer, right? But perhaps not that unexpected. There is much to be said about how much wizards look down their noses at obviously superior Muggle technology. Like, I'm sorry, but texting is just faster than sending a bird to carry someone a message. Harry and the DA were really onto something with that whole galleon thing. And how long does it take Harry, Ron, and Hermione to find Nicholas Flamel in the Sorcerer's Stone? Because I just Googled it in 3 seconds on my imaginary phone, and oh, guess what? Did you know Nicholas Flamel was a real person, like actual in the real world? That's cool, huh? But you wouldn't know that if you were at Hogwarts and had to use a library. By the way, Nicholas Flamel, way to peak early. I mean, you did this one great thing and then didn't make it into a single extra history book with 500 more years of life. Come on, man. And are you telling me that you're not in a single book in the Hogwarts library, but the chocolate frog people figured you out? Like, what? And I'm sorry, but quills, wizards, are you serious? I mean, maybe you could argue that technology doesn't work around that much magic, but quills? Have you heard of pencils that don't require an actual separate bottle of ink? Oh, but what about enchanted quills? Oh, but what about enchanted pencils? But for all the ways that Muggles are actually beating wizards, I would say the one thing they definitely have over them is transportation. One of the largest reported sources of unhappiness in America is people's commute to work. And guess what? For wizards, everyone's commute should be that fast. Apparition all but eliminates all travel issues. By the way, while we're on the subject, let me just say that giving Voldemort the ability to fly was a masterstroke by J.K. Rowling. Because if he didn't know how to fly, do you know how he'd get places? He'd apparate, and then you know what? Harry would be screwed. What's that, Nagini? You have him in Godric's Hollow? Hold on! Ah, I missed him. What's that? You've got Potter at Malfoy Manor? I'll be there in a jiffy. What a great way to demonstrate how powerful he is and also make him super slow. Anyway, the point is, even though wizard transportation is way more efficient than Muggle transportation, one of the main things they envy from the non-magical world is cars. This is because even though it seems like there's a lot of obvious Muggle solutions to wizarding conundrums that wizards don't embrace, it's because they have to deal with a cultural issue. Which is to say, most wizards pride themselves in not using Muggle-created technology that could otherwise be accomplished by magic. Because it would be kind of like admitting they weren't magical enough or up to the task. And while most adult wizards can travel around no problem, once you introduce children into the mix, it becomes a little bit more complicated because they can't do magic outside of school. Flying out in the open might seem like an option, but it's trickier than it might sound. I mean, Muggles do still have eyes, and how many wizard parents want their kids flying that high in the sky? I mean, they're still small children. There's Floo powder, which seems pretty easy, and it does disguise wizard transportation inside of houses, but it's not a group mode of transportation. Each individual person has to say where they're going, and it's easy to mess up, what with all the ash and smoke in the air, or just mispronouncing it.
What did it say, dear?
Diagonally.
I thought it did.
It is such a miracle that Harry doesn't get lost further than Nocturne Alley. I mean, he could have just literally ended up anywhere. So yeah, travel was an issue, but not so much of an issue for a really long time because wizards could just travel out in the open with horse and buggy like Muggles did. Which worked until horses simply became outdated and cars started filling the roads, and wizards were faced with a new problem. How could they move their families around without also embracing such grand Muggle technology? And honestly, it doesn't seem like they ever came up with the very good solution other than to occasionally just embrace cars, which they enhance with magic and stuff. But like the Ministry has an entire fleet of them. Mr. Weasley gets to use some of them to move Harry in Prisoner of Azkaban. Which brings us back to the Hogwarts Express, which is sort of the penultimate solution to all of these problems at once. So imagine you're Hogwarts and you need a way to get all of your students from all over the country to your school whose location is secret. You can't have muggles see them, you need them to all arrive at roughly the same time on the same day. Not only that, but you need this to happen twice a year when people drop them off and when they get picked up. Muggles might not be the most open-minded people and might just fool themselves, oh, that was a trick of the light, but you could hardly expect the entire country to not notice over 300 families converging on a single location like twice a year. The Flu Network seems like maybe the next most obvious solution because you can do it from the safety of your house, but Hogwarts is supposed to be a very secure place, and if you hook up the fireplace to 300 separate dwellings across the entire country, all of a sudden it become a lot less secure. Not to mention, I don't know if every Muggle-born household would have access to the Flu Network, and not every house even has a fireplace. That being said, Sirius is still somehow able to access the Gryffindor common room in the Goblet of Fire from wherever he is. How is he doing this? Why didn't he just do this in the Prisoner of Azkaban to get into the common room? Was the Flu Network just being watched so he didn't think that was safe? But I mean, he's still on the run. The Ministry still thinks he's a bad guy. He's still an escaped felon. I mean, what? How is this happening? Portkeys! That seems like a good idea, right? I mean, it worked for the Quidditch World Cup and people were coming from, well, all over the world for that. The difference with school, though, is that it's far more of a hassle if the students miss the portkey. We know this because in 1692, when the International Statute of Secrecy was imposed, they actually tried using portkeys and about a third of the students missed them. And not only that, but of the students who did make it there, many of them spent the first few days of school in the hospital wing with portkey sickness. So as you can see, it's a complicated problem. But in 1827, Minister for Magic, Adeline Gamble, came up with a solution and suggested a train. Which is pretty interesting. It means the tradition of coming to Hogwarts on the Hogwarts Express is pretty new in the school's history. How they got the train, though, is pretty interesting. I mean, trains are pretty complicated pieces of machinery, and wizards aren't great with Muggle tech.
What exactly is the function of a rubber duck?
So, how did they get a train? Wizard heist. I'm not kidding. The Ministry of Magic literally orchestrated the largest mass concealment charm ever done, after which the people of Hogsmeade were like, huh, I don't remember having a train, or do I? Meanwhile, the local muggles were like, do you feel like maybe we misplaced something? Was it important? It feels important. This might sound crazy, but did we lose a train? Don't be ridiculous. How do you lose a train? And ever since, the students of Hogwarts have been taking the stolen Scarlet steam engine from platform 9 3/4. I suppose it's worth mentioning here that J.K. Rowling says on Pottermore that platform 9 3/4 is not the only fractional platform out there, that other ones, like maybe platform 7 1/2, are open for special wizarding events, like a Celestina Warbeck concert. But why platform 9 3/4? Well, did you know that King's Cross Station is built on the last battle of Boudica, and that it gets its name from a demolished statue of King George IV? Boudica, which is not only hard to pronounce, was also a British queen who fought the Romans. And it is said that in real life, she haunts her gravesite, which happens to be located between platforms 9 and 10. Just saying. But there you go, Ben. That's the reason wizards use, of all things, a pretty non-magical stolen train to get to school. P.S., in case you didn't know, I just think this is awesome, King's Cross Station actually installed a halfway stuck trolley in the wall between platforms 9 and 10 as a tribute to Harry Potter. Oh, and by the way, I said the Hogwarts Express was non-magical, unless of course you want to count the trolley witch, who, in The Cursed Child, has apparently had her job for 190 years, can turn her pumpkin pasties into grenades, and use chocolate frogs to turn her hands into spikes, which she can then use to attack students who try and leave the train. Personally, I try not to think about it because... Ben, my question for you and everyone else is, what are some other ways you think wizards are just being ignorant and could totally benefit from just using Muggle technology? Let me know in the towel section down below.
These socks are amazing!
Guys, thanks for watching this video. As always, please remember to leave a like on the video if you haven't already, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future Harry Potter action from us. If you want to see how Nagini might have been a human before she was a snake, you can check out this video right here. And if you want to know everything you need to know about wizards in North America, you can check out this video right here. But Ben, that's all I've got for you today, man. I will see you in another life, brother.